Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Real Estate with Ryan. Today, my guest is Dakota Barker. Thank you, Dakota, so much for joining me. And
Thanks
I'm
for
happy you're
having me.
here, honestly. It's so great to meet somebody who, figure skates and invests, I guess.
Yeah, I always say that I took a lot of my learnings from figure skating, just the discipline, and I'm now able to apply that to the real estate investing world. So you never know what you can turn those skills into.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of skating is about performance. And when you need to be in front of a crowd, then you really need to have that like that persona.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you know from all the training that you do, there's a lot of discipline to get to that rink every day and make sure that you're on your game and always trying to improve and do better. So that's a lot of the characteristics definitely translate nicely.
Could you just tell me about that? Like your skating career?
Yeah, so I started skating quite reluctantly, actually. I think when I was about five, remember my parents telling me that they put me in skating. I went to my first session and I sat on the ice and cried. So they took me out, and then 2 years later, they decided that I would try again, but this time for hockey. And got back on the ice, and something had changed, I guess. They watched me skate around. I loved it. And apparently, my coach at that point got off the ice and said, "You better go get a second job because I think she's going to be a figure skater." And yeah, the rest is history. I was a competitive single skater growing up. And then now obviously, I've transitioned more into the adult world, but now I do synchronized skating more than singles.
Yeah. Thank you for telling me about that. Aside from figure skating, do you have any other hobbies?
I mean, skating, as I'm sure you know, skating takes up a lot of my time. But I really enjoy, I've always enjoyed reading. I'm a big reader, and probably not as much now as I would like, but I've always liked reading a lot of fiction. And then a big part of my life, and I'm sure we'll get into this, is the reason that I do real estate is my family. So spending time with friends and family. I have a baby, so spent being able to spend time and be there with him and my husband, and yeah, that's I guess those are my other hobbies.
Just to get right into it, did you have any jobs or like what did you do before starting investing?
Yeah, I did. I was not always in real estate. I started out as a medical professional, so I was actually a physician assistant. I went to school for that. I actually practiced for 6 years. So I worked in a hospital the whole time. I did 3 years in adult orthopedic oncology. So I did bone and soft tissue cancer in adults. And then I did 3 years in pediatric hematology oncology. So cancers and blood disorders in children. Did that for 6 years and then got quite burnt out and decided that that transition needed to happen. So I was already investing in real estate at that time. So I was able to leave my job. I never say we were ready. I was definitely wasn't ready to leave my job, but I think I made a really important decision for my own personal health to transition out of my job into full-time real estate.
Like this is so relatable. Everything
I
about
love that you
this.
also said we, because you said we started this. So you're doing a lot with your parents then when in the investing side.
Yeah, I started the channel. I've
Yeah.
read a couple of some very important books. Mainly The Rich Dad, Poor Dad by
Mhm.
Robert Kiyosaki, and also The Cashflow Quadrant was pretty good.
Yeah. Amazing. I wish when I was your age that I had started looking into this more. I had no idea this even existed. So you should be so proud of yourself. That's incredible that you've joined this journey with your parents.
Thank you so much. How did it occur to you to start investing?
It's funny because I initially didn't have much interest in investing in real estate. It was more, I'd say it's my husband. It was actually my husband's brother who introduced the concept to him and invited him to it was like a 1 day real estate investing event. And my husband said, "Okay, we're going to this. You should come." I had just started in my healthcare career. So I think it was like a Saturday. It was nice out, and I said, "No, like I have my big girl job now. I'm gonna enjoy my Saturday. It's nice. No, thank you." And then he told me that there was a celebrity that was gonna be there that I knew from TV. And I said, "Oh, okay, never mind. I'll go." Just to get my picture. So I went, and thank goodness I did because I sat there. I'm kind of a math nerd. I was like a mathlete when I was in high school, and they were going through the numbers of real estate, and they made sense. I'm not a big like stocks person. I never really understood that world, but real estate when they were explaining it just made a ton of sense. So thank goodness I was in that room and had my eyes open to it, because from then on, that's when I said, okay, this is actually something we could do. Let's explore this more because it makes a lot of sense and I think we should do it. So that's how it started. It started by me saying, I don't want to go to this event. And then I ended up at the event.
What celebrity did you meet?
You'll probably you'll probably know who he is. It's Scott McGilvery. So he was going to be at the event. I watched a lot of HGTV growing up, and was a fan of his show when I was growing up. So it was pretty cool at that point to be like, hey, I can go and meet a celebrity. I had no interest in like the real estate side of it. I was just like, I want to go meet a celebrity. Why not? So
But
yeah.
you were just taken on a completely different path.
Oh yeah, immediately. It was no longer about the celebrity part anymore. I still got my picture, mind you. I did still get my picture. But uh yeah, it became more about the real estate very quickly.
How many years have you been doing it so far? Investing.
That first event was back in 2018. So we're going on, I guess, 7.5 years now. We've done a few different types of projects in that time. We've had different focuses, but as far as our first introduction into real estate, it was back in 2018.
Wow. So what kind of real estate do you buy? Like what types?
I can go through kind of where we started and then where we are at
Yeah.
now. So when we first started, we were buying our very first project ever was a single family home. We actually still own it. It was a single family home, and we converted the basement into a unit. So we converted the bungalow into 2 units. So we kind of went right off into adding value to properties. So that we actually still have that one. We did a couple more of those, and we were doing a lot of flipping when we started, which was fun. It's a lot of when you're doing those big renos, it's a lot of action. There's always a lot happening. You got to keep your projects running. But we realized really quickly that yes, it was busy, but the turning over of properties, especially with the flipping where you're selling it at the end, wasn't really getting us to our goals of like actually building wealth because the property's gone, right? It's not producing for you anymore. So we decided to transition more to doing buy and hold multifamily. So that transition happened beginning of 2022, I believe. So we've been at this like at the multifamily thing for about 3.5 years ish now. And that was more aligning with our goals because now we are building an actual portfolio rather than just buying and selling, like doing quick flips. And that is more in line with our goals. So right now, our focus is purpose-built multifamily. The projects we're looking at right now are more of something called a BRRRR, which I'm sure you've
Yeah.
heard of before, where you go in and it's undervalued. You go in, um, whether it's increasing rents, decreasing expenses, whatever that looks like, doing some renos, increasing the value, and then doing that refinance. So that's one kind of pathway we're going right now. Another thing we're looking at is doing some like missing middle infill in Ottawa where we live. So that's more of the infill is more something we're exploring right now, but what we're more actively looking at is purpose-built multifamily that we can add some value to.
So are you guys more of a active or passive investor?
Definitely very active. We figured that's where our skill sets lie. We've been doing this for, we've been doing it for a while now. We have expertise in like quite a few different areas, from doing like where we started in the renos, adding value, adding units, working with the city. We also now we've been managing our properties since the beginning, so we understand the management side of things, and those together, allow us to be pretty proficient, active partners. And we've played different active roles in different deals as well, which has been kind of interesting. But active is where our skill sets definitely lie.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you make a management company for that, or do you manage everything yourself?
We do. So we have a management company. We are kind of the ones that are working in that management company right now. So it's not like we've hired on staff to do it. We do have people that we contract out to.
Mhm.
So we do have team members that way within our management company. And we also only manage our own properties. So we aren't taking on other people's properties. So that was only created to manage our units.
Mhm. Out of your 7.5 some years, what has been your best investment so far?
I would have to say we closed on it was a relatively new, or is, I guess, we still have it, is a relatively new 24 unit property just outside of Ottawa. And that one, it's, I feel like to me, this is like, it's like our baby, because it wasn't our first ever property, but it was our first larger multifamily property. And when we were doing the negotiations, we were able to negotiate a very good price on the properties. They were built in, I think, 2018. They actually built the year we started. So they're about 7 years old. So they're relatively new buildings, which is unusual to get it's unusual to get those pretty significantly under their market value. But we were able to do that just by working with the sellers. We knew what they needed. We did a lot of really good discovery with them, built great relationships with them. And when we closed, we had over $600,000 of equity in the property. So we were able to negotiate down from market $600,000. So we basically made that much when we closed on the property. And then in the next couple months, we were able to, just through like natural rent increase the value. We had a tenant turnover, so we brought that unit back up to market rent. And it just in doing that, we also increased the value of the property. And we did a refi. It was just the way that we closed into a bridge loan and then did a refi into a CMHC insured mortgage. When we did that refi, we were able to pull out $1.3 million on that refi. So that was within 6 months of closing on the deal, which was totally unexpected. These buildings were, to us, were a turnkey, long-term buy and hold property. Our partners that were involved, it was, they're new, they're shiny, they're gonna be in our portfolio for a long time. You're probably not gonna get a big chunk of capital back for a while. And, we managed to pull a big chunk out in 6 months. So it was a cool thing to be able to do. So it was more successful than we had even predicted it was going to be.
How much did you buy that multifam?
The total that we purchased it for was, we ended up at 5.8 million. The actual, was it 5.8? The actual buildings, so there's two buildings that exist, and then we also bought a piece of land that we're going to be developing we're going to be building another 15 units on. So I think altogether we were at
So it's
5.8.
still going on?
Yeah, so the project itself is still happening. We haven't built that additional third building yet. That's hopefully we're gonna hopefully be getting shovels in the ground next spring. So that piece is still ongoing, but we still own the other two as well. We are managing them. They're doing well. They're doing their buy and hold things. So yeah, it was a pretty cool project that did did and is doing better than expected.
Absolutely. Um, on the flip side, what
Yeah.
has been your least successful investment, and how did you learn from it?
Oh boy. So there's two stories that come to mind off the bat. I'd say the shorter one was actually our very first investment. It's the one that we took the bungalow and converted into 2 units. With that one, we just didn't know enough. We weren't educated enough. It was our first project ever. We learned a lot through it. Doing the actual conversion, there was a lot more intricacies to that than we had expected because we thought, okay, we'll go and build a kitchen, build a bathroom, build some bedrooms, close it off, you have another unit. We didn't realize how much work it actually was you had to get things legalized and go through the city and get an occupancy permit. We didn't know any of that. So we learned a lot. I'd say with that, we overspent on the project by at least 50 to maybe $75,000. And it took us probably 6 months longer than it should have. A very expensive lesson, obviously, but from there, we also realized that we needed better education. So we actually got ourselves educated after that. So not only did it teach us a lot, it taught us that we needed to be taught more. So that was good. And like I said, we still own it. The nice thing that I find about buy and hold real estate is that, if there are some issues up front, maybe there is a bit of overspending, which obviously you don't want to do, you don't try to do. But if it does happen, as long as you're still as conservative as possible with it, it's now kind of made up for it. We've made that money back just in the buying, in the holding phase of it. So we have it. Yeah, we still have that project. It works great now, but it was definitely a learning curve for us. And then our other one that we learned a lot from, and I think we're still learning from, was a bit more recent when we were in the flipping space. We had two flips that we finished right as all of the interest rate hikes were happening. So the market shifted a lot, and what we thought we could sell those flips for, we couldn't sell them for anymore. They just weren't worth the same amount as they were when we started the project, just with what was happening in the market. And I think we learned that, flipping may not be the strategy for us. We also learned a lot about watching market trends. This was the first time that we really saw the market come down in our investing career. So we kind of learned what a trend looks like and some things to look out for. With those projects, we were actually able to turn them around. We adjusted the plan on them. We actually kept them and added units to them, and now we rent them out. So we were able to take these very sour projects and actually make them successful, thankfully, from the education we received. But that was a very trying time on us because we for a long time didn't know what we were going to do with these properties. And it got a little scary there for a bit, but we turned it around. Thankfully, we were properly educated at that point and were able to do that. And now they're successful projects. So definitely still taught us a lot.
What trends are you seeing in the real estate market right now, and where?
So our where we're looking at right now is Ottawa. So that's the market that I know pretty well, the Ottawa and secondary markets around that. Um, what I'm seeing right now is, I'd say more, especially in the buy and hold space, we're seeing more vacancy in some of the properties that we have. Um, I don't know, I think people just aren't moving as much. I think there's a lot of people that are, scared of kind of what's happening in the market, Tariffs were a big thing. People are scared of that. Um, I hate to use the R word, but the idea of, you know, recession like tendencies are kind of what we're seeing right now. And I think the result of that is people just aren't moving around as much. So with some of our properties we have had that have been very quick to rent previously, we're seeing maybe, a month of vacancy before we get somebody into that unit. And as a result of that, from an underwriting perspective, just trying to be very conservative with the numbers we're using. Obviously, we always want to be conservative no matter what, but just being a little extra cautious with those budgets and making sure that they're a little bit healthier. With one of our projects, we have more money in our reserve than we normally do, just in case we do have those longer vacancies. Um, because we just want to be more cautious and make sure that there's enough cushion there. Uh, so I think we're trying to be a little bit more liquid with our properties, trying to keep better reserves, be more conservative, just in case something happens. So that's kind of what we are seeing, and then what we are doing about it. Uh,
Hmm.
just being more cautious.
Um, in your entire career of investing, have you had any bad tenants and how did you deal with them?
We have actually, I should knock on wood, we have been extremely lucky with our tenants. And maybe I shouldn't use the word lucky, because um, we do a very thorough screening process. So I say lucky, but I also think that there is some strategy behind that, because we're very careful with who we rent to, and we have a pretty, the word aggressive is probably not right, but aggressive screening process to make sure that we're getting the right people in our unit. That being said, we have had issues. We've had tenants that have paid late. We've had tenants that left the unit in a less than desirable way. Thankfully, nothing major with, holes in walls. Like I've seen the stories, right? You see it on social media as soon as you have investors around you. Um, we haven't had to deal with someone leaving a property packed with furniture and, pizza boxes and stuff everywhere. We haven't had to deal with that. Anybody who's been delayed on rent, we've been able to collect what they've owed, to us. We have never had to take anybody to the landlord tenant board. We were close, but we are able to negotiate with that tenant. So we've been, like I said, we've been lucky, but we're also very, very, very thorough when we are, screening our tenants. And we also do our best to keep a good relationship with our tenants as well, so that if there is an issue, they'll tell us ahead of time, and then we can try to figure out a resource for them. Say they're going to be late on rent, talk to them about it and say, have you checked these resources? Maybe these can help you get your rent in on time. That benefits them, that benefits us. Um, so, I think that's helped us a lot in keeping our tenants happy, but also keeping our properties running properly.
Yeah, absolutely. I have just a couple more questions for you because we're
Yeah.
kind of running out of time. Um, do you have any businesses that you own that you would like to promote, I guess, to the channel, to the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for myself and my husband is that we're always open to discussing different types of partnerships. We have different opportunities when it comes to doing these projects together. Like I said, we focus mostly on purpose-built multifamily that we can add value to. Our big goal is to build a portfolio that is going to help us build wealth, but also build wealth for our friends, our partners, our family, so that we can all, achieve that, whatever that time freedom goal looks like for somebody. So we're always open to discussing different types of partnerships, whether that's active or passive opportunities. Yeah, that's what we do. We work together with people and we love it.
That that's great.
Yeah.
Um, what would be your advice for me today to be successful in the future?
Oh my gosh, my advice is you're already doing it. That's my advice to you would be to just keep doing exactly what you're doing. You are clearly very engaged with your parents. You're watching their journey and you're active in their journey. You're doing this, which is incredible. You're talking to people and learning and building a presence within the space at such a young age. It's incredible. The one piece of advice I would give on top of that would be, I think, more going back to we were talking about skating at the beginning and the the characteristics that you can take out of that. Lean into what you've learned in different areas of your life and realize that you can take those and apply them to real estate. So we talked about discipline. That's a strength you have that a lot of people don't have, is a really intense discipline to be able to do the competitive skating that you're doing. So take that and you can apply that to real estate, having intense discipline, and that's going to take you really far. And that's my advice to you. That's my advice to really anybody who's getting into real estate is look at what you've done in your life and those soft skills that you've learned in different areas of your life that you can now apply to the real estate world. So that would be my other piece of advice, other than just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Like that was great advice. Um, I just have one last question for you, and is there any book, resource, or person that has influenced your investing journey that you would like to recommend to me and the audience?
Boy, oh boy. Okay. There are so many. There are so many things that I could, so many influences that I've had. I think one of the best things that I started doing about a year ago was studying leadership, because a lot of real estate is there's so much involved in like the sales component of real estate, because you're talking about opportunities, you're negotiating, you're selling the purchase price that you want to the seller, on a property. So there's so much in sales that you're doing, and to me, leadership is such an important component of sales and negotiating. So I transitioned more from reading very specific sales books to reading more leadership books, and this was a recommendation from my mentor, who I think you've also interviewed as well, Alfonso Quadra. So that was his advice to me, was do a lot of reading on leadership. And I actually, on my shelf back there, I have a book called Influence. I don't know, um, Robert Robert B. something is the author. That was a really good book that when I first transitioned into learning more about leadership, that one helped quite a bit. There's a ton of books out there to read on leadership, so that would be my advice on that, I guess, and some resources.
Thank you so much, Dakota. Thank you for joining me on this interview and the channel. I just can't thank you enough. This has been a
Thanks
great
for having
interview.
me. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it.